Hi there. So a couple of updates since the last video or last video part. So after the fun of shimming, the clutch fulcrum plate is now in with some thread lock here. And that's just to make sure that it never can really come out, which would then cause some float on the axle. So that's what we've done, and then also the discussion around the main shaft and how the thrust washer locates. So there was a sort of a silhouette of a peg, and it turns out that it was actually sort of a peg here. So there's a hole here, a tapped hole. It doesn't go all the way through to the center where the actuating or the clutch rod is, but it was a peg, and we drilled it out, sort of pulled it out with sort of a thread extractor. It's not threaded; it's just a slot. So we're going to use a roll pin. It's 1/8. So I don't know if you could see. I'll get a better view of that. So that was the remnants of the peg that came out. So it was ground down or sheared off in time. So I'm just waiting for an 1/8 roll pin, which I'm going to measure, cut to size, and tap in. And what that's going to do is locate the thrust washer. Now the thrust washer that I have is actually a more modern sort of Norton, which is still based on the Sturmey Archer design, but it's obviously got these sort of teeth or splines on the inside with some more modern iterations of the main gear. The original thrust washer is a larger outside diameter with 4 slots, with only one of those being used for the peg. So just for the time being, that's something I'm going to have to get made. So just for the time being, this will work as a sort of solution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use once the peg's in place, I'm going to use a file to file a slot into one of the grooves in the Norton thrust washer here. And all it needs to do is just keep it in place. It's not, it's not press fit. It's not supposed to be kind of solid. It's supposed to move, but it's supposed to hold it in there. So that was a good find there. So that's another job for later. So this video we're going to assemble the front cover, which is going to make it easier to reassemble because the kickstart mechanism will all be sort of held in place. So just a quick run through the parts here, again referring to the 4-speed manual that I have. So just going to the images first. So you see that there. So we've got the front cover, this type here. Then we've got a sleeve. We've got the shaft here. We've got the kickstart arm, spring, and then the mechanism that makes all of that work is all these parts here. So I'm just going to run through those quickly one by one. So there's just to note that there's various iterations of these. So through the manual you'll see sort of iterations for matchless, Norton, Jap, AGS. So it depends on the bike. It depends how long these shafts and sleeves needs to be, and the springs. And it's just a case of trying to identify what these are and what you've got. But nevertheless, we have the parts here. They're from the bike. They work. They just need to be reassembled. So the gearbox cover is an E1V, and it's a 31. But again, depending on the issue, depends on whether it's a 31A, 31C, D, E, etc. So it's E31. I'm just looking at the diagram here. Yeah, so E31, and there's a couple of pawls on the inside. Those locate and operate the kickstart mechanism. So those are LS160 and LS20B. I'm just going to quickly refer to a really important part, and if I can see if I can find it on the diagram here. So it's, and what I'm looking for here is this part number here. So this sleeve, which I already tapped in. So after the cover was repaired, it was needed to be welded and then filled and finished because it cracked, which is a common problem. So that I'm just looking to see if I can see the kickstart. So I'm just going to the kickstart mechanism, kickstart axle. Yeah, so the kickstart axle is this part. So that's LS437. Again, different lengths depending on the issue, the bike issue. And then kickstart operating mechanism. So we covered the kickstart pawls, kickstart return spring, long tang, BS, single peg, BS 26D. Then we're on to LS395A, kickstart return spring cover. So this may well have been one piece in the past. It's two pieces. It may have been an afterthought, a reproduction, but this is LS395A. It could be 395F as well. It's again, it depends on the length and the diameter. So then we have the Kickstarter crank clamp bolt, which is a cotter pin. And the kickstart arm itself is LS436. And then I think finally is the operating arm, so the LS387. Over here. Clutch, yeah, here we go. So LS387 clutch operating lever bracket, which is this. Clutch nut, which is this one, and there's actually a washer with it as well, so that sits in there. And the clutch operating fulcrum lock nut, which is this part here. So that's just an overview of the front cover and the kickstart mechanism. So we're going to go ahead and assemble this. So firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply some light duty grease onto the kickstart axle. Again, just probably to sort of keep water out or some moisture out of there, I suppose. But I don't think oil would be the best here. I mean, again, maybe wrong, but I'm just going to apply some grease to this axle. The pawl here on the inside will be lubricated with gearbox oil. So we'll just insert this through from the rear side. Make sure we get it into the right position. So you can see there, so it stops there. So that's it in its returned position. You can see actually there's a bronze bush in there as well. So kickstart axle with bronze bush, LS12B. So that then slots onto the lay shaft here. So that's in position there, and that'll be easier again to when fitting. Once we put on the kickstart arm, it'll be easier because then the main axle, the kickstart axle, won't move around. So then it's a case of attempting to put in place the kickstart lever, but with some pre-tension on the spring. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes, and a bit of trial and error previously had this into the second hole to the right. So putting in the kickstart return spring covers on that way. Alright, and then I think this shouldn't have any sort of grease or anything like that. It's just held in place with the cotter pin. So now it's a case of trying to locate the arm without losing the peg on the return spring to keep that pre-tension. So that's just slotted in, and then trying to keep everything together to locate the cotter pin from the underside. So that's going in nicely. Okay, good. So what I'm going to do is just apply a wee bit of grease to this, because this will be kind of exposed, so I suppose it could foul up in the future, so just a wee bit of grease there. And then there's a spring washer, and then a nut, which should be a 7/16. So I have that here. Yep, 7/16 socket. So I'm just going to drive that on there, so the cotter pin is pulling through. So we've got the groove. Yep. I'm just going to do it. Excuse me. I'm just going to do it finger tight for now, and then so seems to be plenty force on the spring. It's returning nicely. Now the cover isn't sitting perfectly, but I think it's because it's a two-piece. It's just not quite the right length. So obviously when there's a bit of pre-tension on the spring, it just wants to lift the cover up. So it's not perfect, but I'm kind of happy with it anyway at the moment. It might be that with a little bit of fiddling around with the tang, you know, bending it or whatever, you know, it could be made a little bit better. But how it was before was the tang was too short and it was pulled all across here and was fouling on the rear brake switch, the foot brake switch. So I'm happy with that. Gave the cover a coat of paint with the enamel paint, same as the clutch. So I'm happy with that. And then onto the clutch fulcrum goes the operating arm like this, and that just screws down on here. The washer is slotted so that it can't spin round or it'll clear. So this will go on with it'll be an imperial, but I've got a 24mm socket here, so that just goes on like that. And I'm just going to do this just finger tight for now. So that's the operating arm, and of course that's where the cable is. So that's another part done. Next part will be the main axle and the thrust washer and getting all the gears back in the box. Okay, thanks for watching.